Welcome to The Sound, KQAL-FM's weekly behind-the-scenes look at Midwestern-made music. From writing and recording to distribution and promotion, The Sound is your source for new releases and exclusive interviews from Midwestern artists. Support for The Sound is made possible by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Rolling.
Tonight, on The Sound, we talk with Dante DeGrazia about his newest album, Pe the Weople. DeGrazia, known for playing in bands such as Sleeping Jesus and Texas Toast, shows off his creativity and work ethic in this October 31st release. This album forces its listeners to step out of their comfort zones, discussing topics such as education, consumerism, and politics through the use of archival clips and narration, mixed in with layers of instruments and sounds. This album is not for the faint at heart, but its strong message and storytelling is something that makes this album one to listen to again and again. Something to dive deep into. So let's get into it. I'm Abby Hawkey, inviting you to pull up your favorite thinking chair and get comfy as we talk with Dante DeGrazia about his newest release, Pe the Weople, tonight on The Sound.
Sun rises. The sun rises. The sun rises. The sun rises. America wakes up. In many places and countless ways. The day begins.
On my stockings. Then I climbed up the steep wall, and I remembered the story I had quite forgotten before. And in the story, the two figures are called Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve. And only those who know the story understand what they mean.
This is the story. This is the story. The story of a day in the life of America.
tightly round my eyes and made quite sure that I could not see at all.
I'm Abby Hawkey. You're listening to 89.5 KQAL. I am here with Dante DeGrazia, who is here with us today talking about his new album, Pe the Weople, which I thought it was really interesting and definitely eye-opening. Yeah, and the song that was just played here was Elementary, which is the first track off of your album. Tell us a little bit about that. Why did you decide to start this album with this track?
So the entire album is meant to tell a bit of a narrative. So while there's not an actual main character, the listener is kind of supposed to feel like they're maybe the character in this narrative that starts in elementary school and then moves to high school, then moves to college. After college, it moves to, the song is called Enlisted, so it kind of implies that maybe the character goes to the army and then goes to work, and then the last song, Democracy, is basically about the character ending up protesting in the streets.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tells a little story, and Elementary is the day begins with that one.
Yeah. So this album, you used like archive clips and recordings. Where exactly did you find those?
So I've been working on this album for a while, for about 8 years. I've been digging through different samples and stuff. Not necessarily to create this album. That's not why I started. I just was digging through old archival footage on various websites and vinyl records. Just kind of poking around and seeing what old American media used to be like. That was just really fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I would find clips that just seemed like they needed to be brought back to life, and so I started collecting all these different clips, and they started telling this little story. And once the archival clips started getting put in their place, then I started doing a little bit more modern political digging. So some of the voices like Ted Cruz, and there's a speech from the Bush administration in there, so there's some that aren't quite as old. I started digging through those too and just seeing how I could juxtapose the different eras of music and recordings on top of each other to then create what is now a modern album.
How was your songwriting process for this album different from the other things that you have written for your solo work?
This one is very different from anything I've ever written in that I didn't set out to write an album. I just collected different samples and put them together until an album kind of appeared. So I didn't have a story in mind. I didn't know what I wanted to say when I first started writing this. But as the samples collected and as the years went on and the political climate changed, this album just kind of happened. So it feels really organic and like a real extension of who I am and what I've been working on for the last while.
Yeah. 8 years is a long time. Something I was going to ask. This album, would you categorize, I guess, what the tracks that you have produced as songs, or would you say that they're kind of almost something different, I guess?
Yeah, I do think there's something different. It's a narrative. It's like a soundtrack almost, or a dance. But it's not your typical album with, there's no singles. Mm-mm. There's no, I wouldn't really call them songs. Yeah, it's more of a soundtrack to a movie or something that does not exist yet.
I guess you said it was a bit earlier like a story in the way it's told. So you could almost say it's kind of like an audiobook almost in a way.
Yeah,
or a podcast or something like that.
Yeah, it does feel like that.
Yeah.
Like a podcast, but the voices are all from different eras rather than one person reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go into another song right now. I'm Abby Hawkey. You're listening to 89.5 KQAL. I am here with Dante DeGrazia, who just released a new album on October 31st called Pe the Weople. And this next song that I have for you is track number 4 off of this album, and it is called Enlist.
Not a requirement to actually to salute, but I would encourage you to go ahead and give that person a salute, because if it was the other way around, they would be saluting. It makes them feel just a little better if you do that. By regulation, you're not required to. The enlisted folks will work for you somewhere, no matter where you work, and they make you a lot of money. And if they feel good towards you and respect you as a person and as an officer, they do better work for you than if there's a bad feelings between you. They make you a lot of money.
Crazy. Or I am. What those gone crazy if you ask me? What's gone crazy if you ask me? What's gone crazy if you ask me? What's gone crazy?
The enlisted folks, they make you a lot of money. They make you a lot of money. They make you a lot of money.
We learned about an enemy. Sophisticated, patient, disciplined, and lethal. The enemy rallies broad support by demanding redress of political grievances. Its purpose is to rid the world of religious and political pluralism and equal rights for women. It makes no distinction between military and civilian targets. Collateral damage is not in its lexicon.
I'm Abby Hawkey, and you're listening to The Sound on 89.5 KQAL. We are here with Dante DeGrazia in studio talking about his newest album, Pe the Weople. And that song, or that track that you just heard, is track number 4, and it is called Enlist. So you talked a bit about how it is, like a story in which the character ends up enlisting. What would you say is the message behind Enlist?
This song, I think, it's full of irony. It starts with this happy-go-lucky army general teaching a class to his students about how to keep your soldiers happy, and I clipped the audio around so that he ends up saying really his main objective is making money. Mm-hmm. He's saying if you keep your soldiers happy, they'll make you more money, and if we make more money, then we can go fight bigger and farther wars. And then this beat drops, and it's an angry kind of sounding beat. And there's a little sample in the back that's saying bad news, mm-hmm. Which is me giving my opinion, which is that general is bad news. There's a little cha-ching that comes throughout the song. And then at the end, we get Trump, mm-hmm. and everything that he stands for, and people can make their own assumptions.
What kind of kept you going? What motivated you to keep writing these songs? Yeah.
Well, I try my best to pay attention to politics without going crazy.
Yeah.
And I would just revisit these samples and these songs, and they stayed relevant over the years. I would come back to them, and I would think, well, our political climate is only getting worse, and I blame a lot of the old corporate media that I sampled for why our political climate is getting worse. And so, yeah, the album just kept feeling relevant, so I just kept pecking away at it until finally I realized this thing is finished and it's got to come out before this election.
Yeah. The album art that is used here, and I did a little bit of research on this album, and it was created by somebody, or a girl named Martha Hall, who is from New York. How did you get in touch with her about this?
So Martha is an old friend from college. When I initially went to college, I went to Luther, mm-hmm. in Decorah, and we met there. She was just a part of, we were in the same friend group, spent a lot of time together. I always respected her a lot and respected her art. And we're not in touch all that much, but I've been watching what she does on the internet and whatnot. And I noticed a poster that she did for an event in New York. It was a big building, and there were all these little people all over it. And just something clicked, and I thought that kind of vibe is exactly what I think Pe the Weople's album cover should be, because the album almost takes place in a little community, a little dystopian community.
Yeah.
And so I messaged her and I said, "How you doing? It's good to hear from you." Asked if she wanted to collab, and I sent her a couple examples of old children's mm-hmm. books, like those picture books that were like, here's the library, here is the city hall, here mm-hmm. is the lake, like just to kind of help children learn how to exist in their community. And that the examples I sent turned out to be her favorite artist. And so she was like, hell yeah, I will absolutely collaborate on this project. And so we took the idea of those children's books and we turned it into a dystopian nightmare version.
Yeah.
And so if you look closely on this album cover, there are a lot of little Easter eggs, and it is... So there's some scary stuff on the album cover.
Yeah.
But it comes off as a nice little children's book if you look at it from a distance.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you decided to put it out on October 31st and not earlier?
Initially, I wanted it to be the day before the election, but then I realized everyone is going to be stressing out. And this is a pretty stressful album to listen to. It's not necessarily fun to listen to. It's interesting to listen to, but it's not always enjoyable. Like, my sister messaged me the day that it came out, and she said, I listened and I loved it, but it really stressed me out. And I think that was kind of the point. Yeah, and as far as it's a narrative and a story, and I realized over time that it really is a horror. It's like a horror movie almost, or it has that genre. It devolves the entire time into chaos, and at the end there is no conclusion. The conclusion of the album is really just chaos and fear. And so I realized it's kind of a horror film soundtrack, and then I thought, what better day to put a horror record out than Halloween? So yeah. I was just kind of warning people, like, this album is coming out on Halloween because it's going to be a little scary.
Yeah. This next song that we have for you is song number 6 off of the record. This is Cops and Democracy. And you are listening to it here on The Sound on 89.5 KQAL, where I am joined with Dante DeGrazia, who is talking about his latest release, Pe the Weople. Yeah.
Violence, a chance for us to think about what's been going on.
Please, I would like to start off with a chant that goes indict, convict, send that killer cop to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. Indict, convict, send that killer cop to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. Indict, convict, send that killer cop to jail. The whole damn system.
I would like very much to talk to everybody in this country personally about the issues of this campaign. But you understand that the size of the country and the time I have to devote to this campaign makes that impossible. But I do take this method of presenting to you my views on some of the fundamental issues of this campaign, on which my convictions are very strong and very clear. Because I am a businessman, of which incidentally I am very proud and was formerly connected with a large company, I believe that the forces of free enterprise must be business monopolies. I believe in the right of collective labor without any interference and full protection of that obvious right. I believe in minimum standards for wages and maximum standards for hours, and I am in favor of adequate banking. I believe in the encouragement of cooperative buying and selling, and in the full extension of rural electrification. And I believe that the federal government owes a very strong obligation to manufacture our natural resources. We must substitute for the philosophy of distributed scarcity the philosophy of unlimited productivity. I stand for the restoration of full production and re-employment in American private enterprise. I stand for doing what has to be done by spending as much money as possible. We have not, and I pray to God we may never reach the time in America when there is any such thing as democracy. a sacred cause, the preservation of $60 billion. I cannot lead this cause alone. I need the help of every American.
I'm Abby Hawkey. You're listening to 89.5 KQAL. I am joined here on The Sound with Dante DeGrazia, who is talking about their newest release, Pe the Weople, and the song that you just listened to is Cops and Democracy. So, yeah. How do you think that the songs might have changed? Or do you think that the songs would have changed if you lived in a different state?
I think they definitely would have changed slightly, but I think the message of this song is pretty universal throughout our entire country. But as a Minnesotan, I sampled a lot of the George Floyd protests in this song and speeches that came before and after. And so I think as a Minnesotan, I had really strong feelings about these specific protests that I sampled.
Yeah.
So maybe as someone in a different state, I wouldn't have had as strong of feelings because, Minnesotans really were watching their friends and family out on the streets. So it really hits close to home. But it is a national issue as well, these protests that I sampled, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. The message is definitely universal in terms of what it is saying. It's just kind of, I guess, almost the shell in which the message is encapsulated in that might have changed. So listening to this song, I feel like it stood out to me a bit more than the others, I would say. Like you took clips or recordings from the George Floyd Black Lives Matter movement, but it also just, you mixed in like musical instruments in there too, and it felt like almost like you did that almost more in this than you did in other tracks and other songs that you did for this record. Was there a reason behind that?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think this piece is a lot more orchestral, whereas some of the other tracks are a little more hip-hop and sample-based. This one really has its core is like a bunch of strings building into then a big trumpet breakdown, really. The trumpet melody is kind of the climax of the song, and I feel like this song is the climax of the album. And so, yeah, I think it's a lot more orchestral, a lot more dramatic. It's a slow build.
Is there any part of you that kind of wants to do like something that is like a visual aid almost for this album?
Yes, I think that it really needs a visual. I don't think I necessarily need to be the person to make the visual. I think it would be cool to collaborate with some people. But I've had bounced a lot of ideas back and forth about how I could get my idea across visually, from using some of that archival footage maybe to potentially just a whole animated film that kind of takes place in the community that is on the album cover.
Yeah.
I think that could be cool. And then the other day when my mom listened to it, she said, this album needs to be an interpretive dance. So, and I thought, that actually could maybe work. So now I'm considering contacting some dancers maybe and potentially trying to make it an interpretive dance. So we'll see. But ideally, if anybody out there likes the record and wants to collaborate visually, I'm all about it.
Yeah. This album in its whole is something that you have to listen to almost more than once in order to kind of get the full effect of it, I'd say. Especially, I feel like this one, too. So, what action do you hope that people take after listening to this album?
That's a tough one, because I do hope that this album inspires action, not violent action. I think the first thing that came to mind is, from a musical perspective, I want to inspire people to listen to longer pieces, to not expect music to have to become 3-minute singles. And really in today's musical world, in order to get ahead, in order to get on playlists, in order for Spotify to care, you have to be cranking out shorter and shorter songs, and they have to come constantly throughout the year. And that's really not how I grew up listening to music. I listened to a lot of vinyl growing up. I would put on a record and I would sit and listen to it all the way through. And some long concept albums, like a lot of Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, they told these long stories, like Pink Floyd's The Wall. And if you don't listen to it all the way through, or if you just listen to the hits, you really miss out on this vast story that these wonderful artists put so many hours and so much of their lives into. And I'm just worried that as our attention spans shorten, that we're going to lose out on the idea of a long concept album, that if you work to get to the end of it, you'll come out a little bit more enlightened on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I think that was, from a musical perspective, that's the action that I hope this inspires.
Yeah. This next song that we have for you is track number 2 off of Dante DeGrazia's newest album, Pe the Weople, and this is College, which we are playing for you today because we actually have Dante DeGrazia in studio with us right now talking about this album. So yeah, this is College on 89.5 KQAL.
For years we've been told, get a college education. To get good jobs you need an academic degree. Well, academic degrees are lucky to be sweeping floors, and that's not our fault. as I could tell, they were trying to think up something to burn.
But that's not our fault.
Not our fault. About this country being in serious trouble. Wake up, Doc. This country's already over the brink. It's down the drain. You talk about an America that no longer exists. That no longer exists. That no longer
exists. We have always taught our children that education is the key to success, and education, once you have it, no one can take it from you. No one can take it from you. Once you have it, no one can take it from you.
You said, this world's in bad shape. 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 This world's in bad shape.
No one can take it from you. No one can take it from you. Education, you have it, no one can take it from you.
Hear that out there? That's your generation going down out there.
I'm Abby Hawkey, and you're listening to 89.5 KQAL. I am here on The Sound with Dante DeGrazia, talking about his newest album, Pe the Weople, and that was college. As a person that is in college myself, I thought this track, this song was really interesting, especially the line, education, once you have it, no one can take it from you. I'd love to hear what you think that line means.
I think this track is really the only almost uplifting track on the whole album.
Yeah.
It starts with a guy complaining that if you have a degree, it's not going to get you anywhere in this current day and age. Mm-hmm. But that sample is from like the 50s.
Yeah.
So that alone, the statement I was making there was maybe things haven't changed all that much even from the 50s. People have been struggling after college despite their degrees. But the message I wanted to get across wasn't that college was useless and to drop out of school or anything like that. It was actually the opposite, that people should go to college to learn and not necessarily focus on the job that comes afterwards, because the most important part of going to school is the knowledge that you then are able to carry with you for the rest of your life. And once you have that knowledge, no one can take it from you.
I agree there. It's one of the struggles of being a college student is trying to figure out how to separate, the fact that you're going to school and getting a degree and just living life. What's next for you? Are you thinking about writing any more albums or songs right now, solo-wise?
Yeah, definitely. The next album I'll be coming out with, so for my solo work, I try to have every album be nothing like the one that came before it. So I'm trying to attack every genre that I possibly can. So the next album that is coming after this one is a punk rock record, kind of like Blink-182, and I am just exploring that genre, and because I listened to a lot of that growing up, and I think that a lot of that is why I wanted to get into music. Partially, young Dante was like, I'm going to be a rock star someday, and I'm going to dress in all black and be a punk. and I've grown out of that, but now I'm going to revisit that now that I know more about the music industry. I'm going to put out my ironic little punk album.
Yes. I honestly can't wait to hear that. I grew up with punk music, so
right on.
Yeah.
I'll come talk about it with you.
Yes, I can't wait for that. So you can listen to this on Spotify. Where else can you listen to this newest album?
You should be able to listen to it on all streaming platforms. It wasn't quite up on Apple Music the other day, but it will be soon. It might be up by now. It's uploaded to YouTube. It's on my Bandcamp. There's no physical releases. It's all online. But anywhere you listen to music, you should be able to listen to Pe the Weople if you just look up my name. And then as far as physical stuff, I have some big posters of the album cover that are for sale. We'll be selling them at Sleepy Weekend, which is coming up on November 15th. So yeah, if you like the album cover and you want a big poster of it on your wall, hit me up. Come to Sleepy Weekend. That's the merch I got right now.
Yeah. All right. So the last song that we are going to be playing for you today is, I guess you would say, it's the conclusion of the story. This is track number 7 off of your album. It's called Buy Whatever. Why did you decide to, I guess, end with this song?
So throughout the album, there's all these samples that a lot came from old corporate media that really were in charge of the media at the time. And I thought the irony of the record would come through if the climax of the record was the song before, which devolves into chaos, and there's a big protest and a war. And then the next song is this happy-go-lucky, inspiring voice that is basically saying, don't mind any of that stuff you just heard. Just get out there and spend money. Everything's fine. America is running smoothly. And I consider the voice in song number 7 to be the antagonist, really, that is trying to make you just plug your ears and ignore all of the injustice around you. He's like, just get out there and spend money. Let us buy whatever we want and make as much money as we want, and everything will be fine. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
And then the album ends.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. Yeah. All right. Well, this is Buy Whatever here on 89.5 KQAL. You have been listening to The Sound with Dante DeGrazia, who was talking about his newest album, Pe the Weople. And yeah. Thank you very much, Dante, for doing this interview with me. Yeah, I hope a lot more people listen to your album, because I think that it says a lot of true and important things.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to it, and thank you for having me. I always love coming on your show.
Yeah, thank you.
Originating in the spiritual values of liberty and spurred on by a thrifty sense of progress, we live in an age of growing abundance. As we grow and see all that is so wonderful in our land, our abundance is big and comes from bigness. The bigness of our busy business. The bigness of our fields. The bigness of our fast-moving, modern America. Our bigness, our greatness, the abundance that stems from bigness is based on free and thrifty use of the great American penny. We make more pennies than we used to. They are made more easily, and we do more buying with them. The penny, the foundation of our wealth. Enough new pennies coming from our mints each month to supply copper for 3 new Statues of Liberty. As we choose, we have almost unlimited varieties of fun, ranging from the enjoyment of watching the antics of others, having the fun of doing ourselves, or seeing others do. We may indulge in all the excitement of water sports, or take our rolling waves powder dry. There is the choice of the quietness of games for just 2. And the celebrations in which whole communities participate. We may well remember it is all developed from the practical dreams of those who came before us, our founding forefathers. Those who thriftily paved the way for our producers to turn out whatever may best meet the economy demands of our individual American needs and askings. And for our liberty to buy whatever we each may choose.
Thanks again to Dante DeGrazia for being with us tonight on The Sound. To hear more from Dante, check him out on Bandcamp, Instagram, Facebook, and most streaming platforms. For more deep dives into local and regional albums, tune into The Sound every Wednesday night at 6, right here on 89.5 KQAL. You can also listen to past episodes of The Sound with extended interviews and exclusive content on your favorite streaming services. Find links at kqal.org. I'm Abby Hawkey, and we've just heard from Dante DeGrazia tonight on The Sound.
Thanks for listening to The Sound. The Sound is produced by KQAL-FM on the campus of Winona State University. Visit us online at kqal.org. Theme music for The Sound provided by Mike Terrell of Fires of Denmark.